Perfect.
What's your name? But I'm the managing director of Indonesia. Nice.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. And have you already?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes,
You can hear me.
you have to turn on the headset. Push the white button.
And now?
Yes, I can
No?
hear you.
I cannot hear myself.
Press the white button.
No. Hello?
You have to maintain and press it until the red light is on.
Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for being here. So my name is Rosaline Yazeer, and I will be your moderator for today. And we have a very nice program put together for you. And today we're focusing on a very critical but often overlooked topic, especially when it comes to climate action. So it's about wildfires in the tropics. And here we will focus on fire management and how this can improve the nationally determined contributions of country. So welcome everyone here, also to our panelists, and also welcome everyone who's watching online. Just a quick insight into the agenda. So this is the welcome. We have an opening address, then we have a presentation. We have a panel discussion, and then we will have a Q&A with the audience and some closing remarks. So, for now, it is my pleasure to introduce our distinguished guest. We have Wampi Libon. She is the Director of Inclusive Green Growth at the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So, yes, Wampi, can I please give the floor to you?
Oh, good crowd. Thank you. No, but thank you for giving me the opportunity to do the opening address. And I take my headphones off because otherwise I hear an echo in my ears. But so wonderful to be here. So I really think that climate change is affecting us all. And in order to address the climate change, we need to collaborate internationally and ensure that we implement actions. Implement these actions both internationally but very much also on the national level, because we really need actions to help to mitigate and adapt to climate change. And I think what we are discussing today, so forests, they really are a key ecosystem in this regard. So they're really key in fighting climate change. And also in addition to that, of course, they harbor a biodiversity. And they also provide a lot of really an ecosystem to all the species here on Earth. And they also play a key role in the water cycle. So we had the report of the Global Commission on the Economics of Water, and there you clearly see also the effect and the importance of water in this and the tropical forest for water. And of course, it's about livelihoods. It's about everything. I mean, forests are really key in our countries. So without keeping the standing forests, so without keeping our forests, the global community will not be able to reach, to stop the global warming anywhere close to 1.5 degrees. So it's really to reach the Paris Agreement goals, we really have to take care of our forests. And so it's with great pleasure that then the Netherlands, we are supporting a portfolio of projects to have sustainable management of forests and forested landscape. And the Working Landscape Program is implemented by the Tropenbos International and several partners in that program. And I really wanted to congratulate the Tropen Institute for all the great achievements so far, because I think it really helps to show what kind of positive impacts you can achieve if you take good care of the forest and you are a good steward. So if you look at what we try to do as the Netherlands, we increased our finance to respond to this global increase. And especially also the decrease what we will be discussing a bit more on is forest fire. Because I think also forest fire is of course a devastating outcome. And it's really important to share the lessons that we learned there and that we really have a fire smart landscape governance. Something that I haven't heard before, but I think it's really clear that if you see also on what is happening in several countries, we can literally learn on how to build on your forest in order to combat forest fires effectively. So it's increasingly urgent. And if you saw, we have also the World Resource Institute here. They had a report in 2024 and that informed us that forest fires are really becoming more widespread, burning at least twice as much tree than what they did 2 decades ago. So it's really the fire intensity have gone up, and now nearly 6 million more hectares of tree cover loss per year than if you compare it to 2001. So in that perspective, I think is from me, I'm from a tiny country, the Netherlands, but if you put that in perspective, it's an area 1.5 times more than the Netherlands that has been gone in forest fire. So I think it's really topical to work on that. And so we're really happy to work with the Tropenbos Partnership to change this and to lift those positive interventions and lessons that you have learned, to bring it up and share with you, because I think it's a success story, and I think it's also very hopeful if we could include those more in the NDC process, in the national programs that will be determined, because I think we can build up on these programs. So I think together we can effectively protect the forests, and I think it's much needed. So I really look forward to the presentation and the panel, so that we can make some action go in work, in motion. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Wampi, for setting the scene here. I think you clearly showed the importance, I think, of the topic, and had the mentioning of losing forests, an area of more than 1.5 the size of the Netherlands. Where I know we're a small country, but still, in terms of surface, a forest area that's being lost by forest fire, that's a huge area. So that really really demands a space to be discussed. And especially to discuss also how this should be incorporated in nationally determined contributions. So that is what we will do here today. So thank you very much for the opening address, Wampi. Okay, so let me go to the next slide. So Wampi already briefly touched upon the program that we have. So I thought let's use the opportunity to introduce it briefly, because then you also know how as Tropenbos we are working on the issue of forest fire. So as Tropenbos, since 3.5 years, we have a program called Fire Smart Landscape Governance. And we have been implementing this in 5 countries. So as you can see here, we are doing that in Bolivia, in Ghana, Uganda, Ethiopia and Indonesia. And there we are unlocking local solutions to reduce wildfire risks. And we're doing that really working on a landscape level together with the stakeholders to jointly work towards solutions. And we do that by putting in motion or by working towards collective action to reduce wildfire risk. And we do that based on 4 pillars. So we work on empowered communities, and in the next presentation you will get a very lively example of that, how this is being done in Ghana. We work on collaborative learning. This is a very important pillar. So to jointly understand the problem with all stakeholders, then we can address it. Working on improved policies and practices, for example, in Indonesia, working on improved practices in terms of non-burning practices of palm oil growing and other agricultural developments, but also working on policies, of course, including the NDCs. And shared governance, which we see as a crucial aspect to get better governance in the landscape and other levels to be able to implement this collective action. So that was just a very quick flavor of our program, just so for the background. But today we focus not so much on this work, but we focus more on the importance of including it wildfire risk reduction in the NDCs. So with that, the first presentation that I would like to call forward is from my colleague Humberto Gomez. We conducted a study on how tropical countries are integrating fire management into their NDC. So we will now give a short presentation on what we have found, so that it can sort of be the basis for the further session.
Thank you, Rosalind. And as Wampi was mentioning, the rate of the loss of forest due to forest fires and wildfires, it is increasingly every year. There's a recent publication that I believe is only 1 month ago that is showing this trend. And this trend, it is so high that we are losing forest 47 soccer fields size each minute. So this presentation is going to last, I don't know, we are going to be here like 1 hour, 60 minutes per 47 soccer fields. That is the amount of forest that is going to be lost due forest fires. And of course, one challenge that is important, it is that each country, and since we are here in the COP of the UNFCCC, have these commitments about how to reduce and how to adapt to climate change through the NDCs, and we believe that forest fires and wildfires are not only a threat but at the same time an opportunity to enhance this ambition that every country needs to accomplish. It is not tropical, but last year, for example, I know that if you follow the fire things, Canada had a lot of wildfires. So much wildfires that they emit only because wildfires as much as China. Yeah, this year Brazil and Bolivia burned. I believe in Brazil was like 20 million hectares or more. In Bolivia, 10 million hectares of forest. We are not talking about area of forest. So it is pretty sure that the emissions are going to be higher. So the challenge, it is very, very clear. So the thing what we do was, well, to collect all the NDCs for the countries that have more emissions due forest fires and due to fires. And these are the 20 countries that emits more gases because forest fires or because wildfires. And as you can see, there are across the tropics, between South America, Latin America, Africa, and Asia. And after reviewing the NDCs, we review and we see how these countries are including and who of these countries are including the issue of forest fires. The ones that are highlighted in yellow are the ones that have included somehow or mentioning somehow wildfires as part of the NDCs. So as you can see, half of these are 11 from the 20 countries that we evaluated have included wildfires in their NDCs. So it is not to criticize, it is to show the opportunity that these countries have to enhance their commitments, including the issue of of wildfires, because it is not that these countries are not working on it. They are doing it, but they haven't included yet on their commitments as part of the work that they can do. One thing that we have seen, and we are not going to read everything, but is that since the NDCs are adjusted to the national conditions, and the NDCs are basically free on how are formulated, we have different targets and actions that are related with forest fires. So in these countries where the forest fires have been included, you have some countries, like for example Guatemala, that have a very specific target about reduction of forest fires. Yeah, but then you have others, like for example the DRC, that is very general because it's the reduction within all the emissions that they have, and then they mention as an action between all the actions that they are doing to reduce the emissions, actions related with forest fires. We have another type of target that is a percentage, not a specific number, and actions. And here, again, in the case of Indonesia, for example, it is included in all the sector related with land use change. So there is no way, not a unique way to set up a target, and not a unique way to set up actions to work towards the problem of forest fires. But again, it's an opportunity to see different examples of how we can tackle and how we can include this issue in the NDCs. There are some key issues that are related with this evaluation, and is that some countries include mitigation and adaptation as part of the measures that they are dealing with wildfires. Some countries only talk about mitigation, other countries only talk about adaptation. For example, Mexico, that includes forest fires, that they include forest fires as part of the adaptation measures and not mitigation measures. Yeah. Some of them have included quantitative targets, or others have not included quantitative targets and only commitments about reduction. Some of them have included the problem of forest fires as part of a more broader climate goals. So it is included in the reduction of all the emissions, and some part it is related with forest fires, but it's not specific. Some of them have described institutional political measures, very specific institutional political measures. Guatemala, for example, have a whole set of different institutions working towards wildfires. Indonesia too, in their NDCs already. So they are including not only the commitment and the actions, but including the means and the implementation ways. Of course, there are some challenges and commitments, and the first challenge, and we are happy that WRI are going to talk about that, it is how to measure. Yeah, because if we want to put some kind of quantitative measure, there are some challenges to measure not only the amount of area that is being burned, but the relation of this area with emissions. And finally, there are some measures that are described but are very general. So we need to think on measures that are more actionable. So from the lessons that we have learned from this analysis, there are 6 approaches, or 6 things that we think that can be included if a country that don't have included yet forest fire as an issue in their NDC can do. The first one, of course, is to recognize the impact of wildfires. Yeah, we have analyzed only 20 countries, but there are a lot of tropical countries. Some of them, forest fires are not a big issue yet. But with climate change, we are pretty sure that in the future that is going to be an issue. So the recognition of this significance and the contribution to the overall emissions at the level of the country, it is important. The second one, it is the necessity to set clear targets. Targets that are related with area, targets that can be related with the amount of emissions. But of course, beside that, it is the methodology to do that. We've been talking here in the conference years and years and years and years about how to measure deforestation, yeah, and how to put targets related with that. Can you imagine that with fires? So that is a challenge. The third one, it is related with the implementation of comprehensive measures. We saw that there's, for example, some countries manage the issue of wildfires as risk management. Yeah, other countries tackle the problem as a land use change problem. Yeah, so there's a necessity to think on this problem on a more integral way. Otherwise, we are going to create mini silos inside a silo. Yeah, that is related with forest fires. Of course, adaptation and mitigation, it is a thing that needs to be joined. Yeah, it is related with emissions, but at the same time, the risk of forest fires have an inherent impact on the ecosystems and on the people. Not talking, and we are not talking only about losses of economy or losses related with services. We are talking about losses of lives. Yeah. Of course, strengthening institutional capacity. Some countries have a specific office that work with this. Other countries have included the issue of forest fire within the offices that deals with other risks. So at the level of flooding, or the level of landslides, or this kind of threats. And finally, of course, promote interinstitutional coordination, because the problem related with wildfires is not a problem that is related only with forestry. It is a problem that is related with agriculture, and a problem that is related with health, with education, and others. So again, in the measures that we describe in the NDCs, a good practice should be that we include interinstitutional coordination. All of these things are on those papers that you have there, and there's a QR code to download the report if you want. If you don't want to take paper and you want to take a PDF file, so you can download the report over there.
Yes. Thank you very much, Humberto, for this insightful presentation, and indeed happy that we can read it further. So now we have the opportunity to dive a bit further and dive a bit deeper into this topic. So for that, can I introduce our panelists to come to the front so that I can properly introduce you? So our first panelist will be Mercy Owusu Ansa. She's the director of Tropenbos Ghana, and she will show us how the program is being implemented in Ghana, and there will be a focus also on the role of the communities in working on reduced wildfire risk in the landscapes there. So, Mercy, can I give the floor to you to start off?
Thank you very much. And then for our participants, we are very pleased that you can hear our story and then how we do it in Ghana. So at the core of our NDCs is the fact that we want to reduce the risks, and then also as a security measure, we really want to ensure that there is early warning, and then also there is also risk management. And that is where I link the wildfire issue, because wildfire is a risk, especially in the forestry and then also the agricultural sector. And that is exactly where, as Tropenbos Network, we are working. So we are working in forest frontiers where the forest and then agriculture meet together. And to ensure that we are reducing food insecurity and then at the same time preserving our forest reserves, then it means that we needed to work at the landscape level and then also at the regional and the national level to ensure that we are reducing the incidence of fire in these forest frontier landscapes. How we do that is very, very simple. We are involving our local communities. So within the local community setting, we have established what we call the Fire Volunteer Squad. This is made up of men and women who have volunteered to be part of ensuring that fire is reduced, it is prevented, and then should there be an incidence of fire, then also they are also ready to lead the community, so they don't do it alone, but also to lead the community in suppressing this fire. For our fire smart landscape governance approach, we are looking at not just the community, but all stakeholders also. So within the community, there are the traditional leaders who are the custodians of the laws and then the regulations in the community. So we are engaging them to ensure that there are some laws and regulations, but also some sanctions that will be applied in case there is the flouting of the laws. So that is what the traditional authorities are doing. Beyond the traditional authorities, then there are the fire volunteer squad and then the whole community. So it is a holistic engagement that we are doing in the various landscapes where fire is a threat to both forest and then also agriculture. Now, we don't just stay in the community because we know that there are mandatory organizations that are also responsible at the district and then also at the regional level who are responsible for managing wildfire. So we also get them involved through several discussions and then also helping them to give capacity to our landscape actors so that they are well informed and then they are also well equipped to be able to fight fires as appropriate. Now we move beyond the district and then also to the national, because we are also engaging with national the national government. So the fire authority in Ghana is called the Ghana National Fire Service, and we have a very close relationship with them, trying to ensure that they are capturing the issues of fire, and then also we are contributing to whatever activities they are implementing in the various communities. It is interesting that at the landscape, we are going as far as involving the youth and then also the children, because we have noticed that the children are able to carry a lot of messages to their parents when they have been well informed. I recall one incident where one of my managers told me that during an education in the school, then one of the parents called him and said that, okay, so my son came back home and was trying to tell me about wildfires. So can you tell us more about it? So that was very, very interesting, that we go to the schools from the primary to the secondary and then also not much in the tertiary, but also ensuring that the teachers are involved, the school children are involved, and then also the communities are involved. This approach really helps us to ensure that we have the locally owned solution in the land in our community. How is that helping us? Because it is the local communities that have come together to form the volunteer squad. They are trying to find a solution to the wildfire incidents that occurs in the landscape. So it's not about somebody telling them to do something, but because of the capacity that we have built, because of the information that we have provided, because of the awareness that we have created, they have come together to form their own volunteer squad, and then they are using this squads to reduce the incidence of fire. There are some communities in our another project where we have even set up the early warning system. So there is a fire calendar which shows when and how to burn, and then there also tells them what to do when somebody notices that there is the danger of fire. So this it has different colors. So when the calendar is on red, then it means that it is very dangerous. So communities are not supposed to burn. That is important because for most communities in Ghana, fire is used as a farming tool. So when land is prepared, most communities will burn the land before they start planting. So it is still difficult to really nail down the information that it is not necessary for them to burn. So the solution that we have found is that, okay, so the burning will continue, but how to go about it. And then as part of the locally owned solution, the communities have arrangements with these farmers, all the farmers, so that when they are about to burn, they don't do it alone. They have to inform the fire volunteer squad, so that the fire volunteer squad will ask somebody to go with them, so that in case there is an incident, then there is somebody who is informing the wider community that there is an issue, and then everybody has to come on board. To ensure that they are well equipped, because fire, it could go out of hands and then it could burn them. So we also provide some fire protection equipment for them, so that when they are fighting the fires, they are also well protected. So these are some of the things that we are doing in our landscape. We have a video, so probably after every panel member has spoken, we can show the video of Ghana to show how we are doing this at the community level as part of the fire smart landscape governance approach that we are implementing in the Tropenbos International Network. Thank you very much, Rosaline.
Thank you, Mercy, for telling us more about how this is working out in Ghana. And I like how you spoke about the different levels in which you address this. So you even work with the youth, and even with primary school, but also with the National Fire Service of Ghana. So really showing how you need to work on the different levels and with the different stakeholders. So thank you for addressing that. Then we move to our next panelist. I have the pleasure to introduce Arif Wiaja. If I pronounce it correctly. He's the Managing Director of the World Resources Institute in Indonesia. And he will shed some more light on how to monitor wildfires. And because, of course, this is a crucial, as was mentioned, this is crucial. Arif, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Rosaline. Can I get my slides up, or thank you? Okay, one more. Oops. Okay, thanks. So I think I will just start. I'll just continue a little bit on the setting up the context, because I guess Wampi and also Humberto already explained about what is the trend and also the severeness of the wildfires over the past years. At WRI we actually have the Global Forest Watch platform, whereby as you see that based on our analysis, forest fire becoming more widespread globally. And if we talk about numbers, you see that forest fire actually results in the 6 million more hectares of tree cover loss per year, which is actually, as Wampi explained before, is actually what 1.5 size of the Netherlands. And the trend of forest fires with regards to the tree cover loss increased back in 2001. Forest wildfires contribute to only 20% of tree cover loss. By 2024, it actually increased to more than 30%. And we know that right now, even in 2023, as you see there, nearly 12 million hectares of an area, it's actually roughly over the size of Nicaragua, actually burned. And then 65%, or more than 60% actually is because of the wildfires in Canada. I will explain it more. But before that, we will see that, for many regions, is it on boreal, subtropical and tropical, is actually the climate change and global warming really affect, the increasing trend of forest fire. I could give really an example in Indonesia. In Indonesia, whereby it's a tropical country, and then 20 years ago, the frequency of El Nino or the long drought season is like, happen every 6 to 7 years. Over the past 15 years or less than 10 years, the frequency of the El Nino even becomes much more frequent. I will show you later. Yeah, because when we talk about forest fires, there are three main contributors how fires could actually happen over the landscape. One, because there is a fuel availability, so trees, forests are the fuel. The second is because of the dryness of the conditions, right? The El Nino even long drought season is actually the dryness. And then the third is actually the ignition source. So if any of these factors are absent, basically, we can actually reduce the risk of fires. And certainly, climate change makes the forest fire even becomes worse over the past years. You see from the number, the graph on the left showing that wildfires actually contribute to almost one fourth of the tree cover loss over the past 20 years. This is also based on the analysis from our platform, Global Forest Watch. And you see on the right graph, you see that the trend of the tree cover loss due to fires actually increasing, over the past 10 years or so. And then here, the boreal ecosystem actually suffered the most because of the forest fires. As I explained earlier, Canada is one of the countries that actually suffered most of the wildfires last year. The western part of the U.S. as well. But doesn't mean that the tropical countries actually not suffering from fires. I could explain there the spike in 2016. You see on the green line there. That actually because of the long prolonged dry season over almost 2 years at that time. In Indonesia itself, the country actually lost almost more than 2.5 million hectares, many of them because of the forest and peatland fires. Peatland is another ecosystem. This is a wetland ecosystem that has the high abundance of carbon stocks. And if it is drained and then converted to palm oil, for example, or pulp and paper companies, it's really pulp and paper. For pulp and paper, it becomes very prone of fires. So, and then once it is burn, the emissions will go over time. A study conducted by the World Bank back in 2015-2016 about this, the cost of forest fires at that time in Indonesia. It actually it costs like what 16 billion US dollars of total economic loss, including the health and so on. So it is very severe. I could explain that Indonesia on the right side bar, you see that the spike of the deforestation or forest loss is actually on 2016. It's mostly because of this forest and peatland fires. If Canada on the graph on the left, many of these fires happen because of the natural causes. In Indonesia and in many tropical forest countries, the forest fires is caused due to mainly anthropogenic factors, right? The cultivations of palm oil, or for smallholders, shifting cultivation and so on. And if you see the bar, the right side graph, Indonesia performed very well in reducing deforestation over the past 7 years now, since 2016. This is mainly, and one of the reasons is because the government successfully reduced the risk of forest fires. In 2016, the government of Indonesia decided, to release or to launch the regulation saying that clearing agricultural land using fires is actually illegal. So it is forbidden by law. So that actually, the slash and burn agriculture, which used to be sustainable, for many years now it's actually it's not suitable anymore with the population pressure, with the the changing climate and so on. So we analyzed that the emissions from forest and peatland fires in Indonesia actually contribute to up to 45% of a total land use emissions back in 2016. So it's a fear. So basically, the NDC of Indonesia, as Humberto already explained before, already included the emissions from the forest fire. Even the second NDC that is currently under preparations by the government of Indonesia includes not only the CO2 from forest fires, but also the methane and some additional gas like HFC or hydrofluorocarbon. So this is actually interesting. So what we are doing at WRI, World Resources Institute, actually maintain this platform, Global Forest Watch. This is an online, open, public platform that that provides informations about the dynamics of forest and land use, but also the trend of the forest fires over the world, like worldwide, from subtropical region, boreal region, including also in tropical regions. With regards to the forest fires, this platform provides not only the fire alerts, like a near real-time fire alerts from MODIS data, but also provide 30 by 30 meters analysis, annual land fires using combinations of different satellite data, including Landsat and so on. So you could see that those at least two, primary data available in this Global Forest Watch platform. We also estimate the emissions from deforestations, but also from the forest fires. So you could actually check on this platform. So Indonesian government, of course, they developed their own system. The Ministry of Environment and then Forestry, they have a national system called SIPONGI to estimate and to analyze the forest fires, but also to provide up-to-date information about the fire alerts over the country. And I would totally agree that the forest fires monitoring and this platform availability is just one thing, right? But how to mitigate fires on the ground based on our experience working in Indonesia, it really needs the collaboration between the local people, the communities, and the government, even with the private sectors, because pretty much of the fires happen in Indonesia, also happen in surrounding of either oil palm or pulp and paper concession or companies. So it needs a collaboration between private sectors, communities, local government, as Humberto already explained. So the need to have a proper policies, but also the good governance, a collaboration between the state government, subnational government, local communities, private, and also the local CSOs is really the key here. So, and this is my last slide. So basically, how we found the role of geospatial data in mitigating forest fires and how it actually be useful for NDC submission. So basically, what this GFW platform for countries which are which doesn't have yet a national fire or forest monitoring platform, they could actually use GFW as the platform, as one of references. You see, because the platform have the near real-time alerts for forest fires, and we are also doing in Indonesia based on GFW data to develop so-called verification protocol. So when we spot, we work together. We work together with the local NGOs, but also local police and local forest rangers. When there is a fire alerts happening in one locations, this actually could help the local community or the local forest rangers to actually direct their forest patrol, I would say, yeah. So to do the field investigation and field checking. So this is really helpful. And the annual report on the tree cover loss from fires is also useful for a country. In Indonesia, some of the provinces also getting support from us, and then they use some of the data available at GFW to to help them in estimating the emissions from forest fires. Of course, you see that important source of data to support results-based payment for forest initiatives, and because for the country like Indonesia, whereby the country has more than 90 million hectares of tropical forest, the third largest after Brazil and Democratic of Congo, reducing forest fires is really critical, both to protect the biodiversity, to protect the livelihood of the forest-dependent people, but also forest is actually the, right now, the government is trying to boost the carbon credits from the forestry sectors in Indonesia. So you could imagine if, how could a country produce high integrity carbon credits if they actually fail to reduce deforestations or the damage because of the forest fires. I think I will just pause there. Rosalind, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ari, for this very nice presentation. I think you once again sort of highlighted the importance of working on this topic of wildfire, with the wildfire being accountable for 20% of the forest loss worldwide, and quite a part of that also in the tropical forests. But also the major costs that come with that, as was calculated in Indonesia, which you can imagine if such a large area burns, and the health implications of the haze as well, of course. And thank you for showing us the Global Forest Watch platform. I think this is a very useful tool that we could capitalize more on. So it's good to see it here and how we could further use this in the countries. And I know indeed that some of our partners are already using this. So thank you for that. Then it's my pleasure to introduce our last panelist. That is Claudia Ortiz. She is a climate change specialist at UNDP. So today she will tell more about how UNDP is supporting countries in updating their NDCs, and what challenges and opportunities one can encounter doing that.
I'm going to stand, if you don't mind. I think we can all use a little shake up here. All right. So as it was mentioned, I work in the UNDP. At the moment, we are supporting countries with their national determined contributions. We have a goal of supporting about 100, and this is because this is a flagship initiative that we have. It's called the Climate Promise. It was mandated by the Secretary General that UNDP plays the coordination role amongst the UN agencies on NDCs to make sure that we get to NDC 3.0. There you go. To NDC 3.0. So what I would like to talk to you about is the intentional effort that we're doing in UNDP to really link up not just the NDC, not only raise ambition within the national return contribution, but link it with the national strategies, National Biodiversity Strategic Action Plans, the NBSAPs. And the reason we're doing this, and I think as many of you, if you have been here long enough, have seen there is also an effort from the conventions to do more synergies. And that makes sense for countries for many reasons, efficiencies and theoretical to have aligned targets, but also because it's an incentive for additional unlocking of finance. So this is a little bit of the context. I don't need to preach to the choir. First of all, NDCs, as we have them right now, the current trajectory of the current NDCs are not really leading to 1.5 degrees. If we don't scale up ambition on NDCs, as well as the biodiversity action plans, which did not achieve also the Aichi targets in the last round, then we're going to really lose the battle on the triple planetary crisis. According to the IPCC report, safeguarding biodiversity and ecosystems is fundamental for climate resilient development, meaning if we don't look at biodiversity and ecosystem services, we won't have the ability to really reach into sustainable development and stay within the 1.5 degree of warming. Nature-based solutions provide more than 30% of the action to mitigate climate change and accelerate adaptation. Because even if emissions are halved by 2030, if we don't protect and conserve the critical ecosystems that we have, temperatures will continue to soar. Basically because the Earth's ability to adapt to the changing climate is severely impaired if we don't protect these very critical biomes. Nature must be at the heart of implementation of the Paris Agreement, but also we need to include climate action in the United Nations Convention on Biodiversity as well as the Convention to Combat Desertification. Because decarbonization needs to be inclusive also of ecosystem conservation and management to successfully achieve Paris and also the SDGs. This is just a timeline in terms to really emphasize the unprecedented time that we have. On the top, you will see the revision process of the NDCs. They need to be, the third generation of NDCs needs to be submitted theoretically in February of 2025. Many of the countries that we're supporting won't get there by February. We have some front runners, but we believe that it's most likely going to be towards September or the next COP30 in Brazil. Meanwhile, in Cali, just last month, and Humberto and I were there, countries were presenting the revised biodiversity targets because they have to revise according to the Global Biodiversity Framework, ideally to have their MBSAPs as well, but also some countries may take longer time. But for sure, by February 2026, the 7th national reports of the Convention on Biodiversity need to be submitted, which means MBSAPs need to be done. Clearly, there is an opportunity for countries to take into account targets from these MBSAPs into the development of NDCs, and forests play a critical role in that alignment. They are the natural integrator for climate, biodiversity, and people. First of all, if we protect forests, we're also protecting biodiversity-rich ecosystems. Many of the critical forests, as we call high-integrity forests and mangroves, are also biodiversity hotspots with high concentrations of endemic species that are under threat. Secondly, protecting forests will have, and I think somebody earlier mentioned this, is a cross-cutting mitigation and adaptation benefit. Not only are we helping with the carbon sinks to limit global warming, but also forests help with ecosystem services that are critical for climate resilience, including rainfall patterns, safeguarding water resources, microclimate regulation, soil health, very, very important. Thirdly, and this is a big one, is economic incentives in place. We know that the REDD+, thanks to the REDD+ policies, there is also REDD+ performance-based payment. The Green Climate Fund has a funding window specifically for results-based payment. If a country is able to demonstrate through its REDD report that they have reduced emissions from deforestation and desertification, then they can actually access big grants in payments, really. They're result-based payments for these efforts. There's also market approaches from REDD. We have payment for ecosystem services, and also there's been a lot of public-private partnerships lately for deforestation-free commodities. So there's an incentive to do that. I would like to highlight that indigenous people play a key and central role in integrating the climate and nature agendas on the ground. It's been studied that lands that are legally held or titled to indigenous peoples actually have significantly lower deforestation rates compared to other areas. And that community-based solution, and our colleague from Ghana mentioned it earlier, is really a backbone of maintaining forest targets within the NDCs and the biodiversity strategy action plans. And lastly, it helps us also to be key players in the global climate and biodiversity policy landscape and financial landscape. So the REDD+ global framework under the CCC enables cooperation between countries, developed and developing, to facilitate integration of climate and biodiversity targets. And the monitoring and transparency framework to ensure efficiency, it also helps us unlock resources, like I said. If we're able to track well how much we're able to achieve in deforestation, there is also a way to unleash finance towards that. So, as I mentioned earlier, we have basically three pillars that we're looking at in UNDP to align and deliver for nature and climate. The first one is at the policy coherence. And what does this mean? Again, trying to align the targets not only on NDCs and BSAPs, but there's also national adaptation plans, and there's also land degradation neutrality targets. In terms of forests, one concise measure is to include forests and other AFOLU targets, including REDD+, in using their national data as per the UNFCCC REDD Information Hub in NDCs and MBSAPs. The second one is to deliver integrated interventions and portfolios on the ground. This is the actual portfolios, investments for on-the-ground measures. In terms of forest, transfer REDD and other forest-based good practices, and these include a lot of bottom-up approaches, as were mentioned also, participatory approaches as a basis to make decisions on MBSAPs and NDCs, and integrate climate indicators in biodiversity projects and vice versa. And the last one is to unleash finance that delivers for nature and climate. So for example, could carbon markets help achieve biodiversity targets within the NBSAPs? And I believe that's possible, especially in forest countries. So that is also something we want to promote more across convention instruments. And a big one for forests is also to scale up direct grants for indigenous peoples and local communities to deliver integrated solutions for nature and climate. We have some success cases, and I'll just mention Colombia actually, because we were there, and the Colombian government has finalized this new biodiversity plan. And it explicitly identifies measurable actions to raise ambition on climate, including in deforestation and restoration. And these measures will be included also in their NDC 3.0 and expand into other areas of biodiversity action. Ghana and the Democratic Republic of Congo are using AFOLU approaches to be able to achieve on their NDC. And I'll just mention some tools. I'm not going to read it, but we have a guidance that we just developed with Climate Focus and the UN Direct program for aligning short-term actions in the land use sector within long-term climate objectives. So as you can see, it's basically a checklist of 5 building blocks that will enable effective NDC implementation in the land sector in line with long-term climate goals. I should have a QR code. I don't have it, but we'll be happy to provide you with the link for this guidance. The second one is the plant tool. So this is the Paris Agreement land use and NDC tracking tool, and it actually simulates NDC trajectories using the country's NDC data and greenhouse gas inventories for 4 scenarios by the target year. So this is very helpful to see if we have a conditional target met in our NDC, how does that would look like in terms of our emission reduction in the forest sector, in the land sector. Again, we have a link to that. Happy to share that. And then the last thing we're piloting recently is the use of AI as a conversation starter, really, because it's not going to solve the problem, but at least it helps to facilitate the alignment of targets in the biodiversity plan as well as in the NDC. And forest, as I said, is going to be a critical sector to look at. Colombia, Costa Rica, Belize, Dominican Republic, Guatemala, and Panama were the first ones to show interest in testing this, and we also have some new countries that we're testing, that we're getting approached by in Africa. So we'll be looking at this, and hopefully we'll have some results to showcase. So thank you.
So thank you, Claudia, for your presentation. Once again, it was a very interesting one. I liked how you linked to both the NBSAPs and the NDCs, and also showing had the opportunity for improving these in the coming months, actually. So there's work to be done, but also had the need for policy coherence, but at the same time also including people at the local level, and especially also the role for IPLCs that is there and their importance in this matter. And also thank you for showing the tools. I think that's a very valuable one as well, and very concrete things that we can use. So with that, we would like to move now into the discussion. Although we have some questions prepared, but I think now is also the time to see if there are some questions from the audience here. Or you can start thinking about it, and then first we move to a question. Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Great presentations. It's Damien here from. So I think you presented very well the increases in fires and forest loss over time. Largely due to climate change, but also human influence. Do you know of any research or any trends in terms of the dynamics of fires, in terms of intensity? How is that changing? Impacts in terms of ability of forests to regenerate themselves naturally after fire. So, what sort of differences are we seeing in trends over time, and how is that affecting our ability to be able to respond?
Thank you very much. Oh yeah, you have another one.
Sorry. Okay. Thanks. If I understood correctly, I think you asked about, and thank you first of all for the questions, the dynamic of the fires and the intensity and how forests can cope with the forest fires, of course. So my experience working in the tropical regions, like in Indonesia and Vietnam, for example, the the fires happen in the major forests. Could depending on the intensity of the fires, but in the present years, I would say that the impact is even more severe. I would say for tropical forests, normally trees can regenerate and becomes like how do you say, a major condition between 30 to 35 years. So you could imagine if the frequency of fires actually happening more frequently, like every 4 or 5 years, because of this prolonged drought season. The seedling or the trees that already like regenerating naturally, they will for sure be disturbed because of this dry season, including also the forest fires. To be honest, WRI, we haven't analyzed what is actually the impact of intensified forest fires in the tropical regions, like in Southeast Asia, towards how forests can actually, how for sure it will delay the forest stand to come into the climax or to the major conditions. But we haven't got a chance to do this analysis in more detail. But for sure, your question is really good. It has really a significant impact for the forest regenerations. Thanks.
And I can add that I was seeing on my phone because this morning I found a study made published on August that is just about the question that you are making about the trends, the last trends, including data from 2024 about how the trends are going and how is the influence. So there is information about that. Then I can share that with you. But there are another studies that have been made in Brazil about the regeneration after fire. And what they have found it is that, well, from the top, yeah, from this part here, after the fire you can see again green. But the main problem is that the fires that are happening right now, at least in the Amazon region, are so severe that the seedlings and the seeds and the soil is being burned. So then you see green again up, but in the soil you don't see any babies, any young, anything. You only see soil and trees. So the impact on the regeneration, we are going to see it in 20, 30 years when these trees are going to be so old that they cannot provide any more seeds or anything. And at the same time, the impact of the fires are not only on the vegetation but in the fauna too. Yeah, all the seed that is not prone to fires. So the next cycle, this third factor that you are mentioning about the combustible available there, we are putting more combustible there.
Yes, thank you. Is there anything that you have to add there on the trends in Ghana? Yes.
And so, a very sorry situation in terms of vegetation. So, because due to fires and then also, combined with other climate change, drivers, we are seeing changes in our transitional landscape now. So in Ghana, we have 3 different forest types. So we have the high forest, the transition, and then also the savanna. But we are seeing that the savanna is drawing closer to the transition, which is very, I said it's a sorry situation because the transition is described as the food basket of the country. So that is where we get a lot of our cereals, a lot of our food. And then we see this wildfire occurring. For us, it is not 4 years. WIR said 4 years. But I was just saying that for Ghana, it is an annual, something that happens annually, especially in the transition and then also the savanna landscape. And we see this changing in vegetation in tree crops, but also in on the not just the flora, but also on the fauna. So we are losing, biodiversity when it comes to the intensity and then the rate at which fire is occurring. Sometimes we have been able to identify the fire risk season in Ghana, but because of the impact of climate change, it's also shifting. So although sometimes communities and then everybody is ready that fire is likely to happen between November to March, then sometimes the dry season is so prolonged that it goes beyond that time when farmers are supposed to start planting and all that. So it is affecting vegetation, it's affecting food security, and then it's also affecting biodiversity and other aspects of conservation.
Thank you for that, Mercy. So the transition zone is really transitioning into more savanna land, I understand. Yes, please, let me give you the microphone.
Hi, this is a real quality conversation. I think the audience matches the number of panel members. But it's fascinating, so it's quality, not quantity here. Dominic Brain from Christian Aid UK. So this is a slightly off-the-wall question, which is around fragile conflict-affected states. So we obviously know that there are many fragile states that have large forests, like the DRC, Central African Republic, and elsewhere, but also sort of subtropical forests in the Sahel. So I guess the question is, how can integrated fire management operate in more fragile contexts where conflict may be a contributor to deforestation?
Thank you for that question. Yeah, I guess.
One of the countries where we have our program is precisely Ethiopia. So they've been working since, I believe, 3 years ago, and they have applying like a top down and a down top approach to trying to starting with national and regional policies. Not so much practices and not so much working on the field with the areas that are in conflict and with the people that are in conflict, but with the representatives. And they have made, I will say, a beautiful work with the elders, the elder authorities that are very respected, even with the conflict people. Yeah, the people that were in the war. There was a moment during the development of these regional policies that the elders basically sit the people in conflict, not together. They sit with one group and then sit with other group to discuss the necessity of reducing the risk of fires and to get like I would say a peace agreement to not to use fire to fight. Because one of the conflict was the use of fire to fight. It is not only a thing that is with guns and violence, but the use of fires to displace people from one place to another. So they create these, I don't know how to say it in English, consejos? Councils, yeah, local councils with these elder people to develop these policies and get to these agreements. After they get these agreements, they start to developing a national policy. They already have in Ethiopia a national policy on wildfire management, and it was the decision of the regions, and one of these regions is the region in conflict, to develop a regional policy too, because all this process has been set up. So I believe that is not only one point of entrance, but in this case, in the case of Ethiopia, one thing that it was a key element was the participation of this council of elders.
Maybe I can just compliment. That was a very good question. Maybe not in the context of forest fires, but actually in Colombia, they Colombia had been in conflict for many years due to the illegal drug trafficking, and obviously that impacts ecosystems and forests in many ways. So a while back they established a peace process. And now, in recent years, what they're doing, and UNDP is part of this approach, is to involve the communities, and in some cases, for example, the ex-FARC forces, in ecosystem restoration and ecosystem-based adaptation processes as a way to also maintain the peace and involve these people that in a way could have been also sort of marginalized because they were the causes of conflict, if you will, right? In taking care of the forest, taking care of the land, and actually protecting biodiversity. And this is now enshrined into policy too, because it's something that has been included as a core part of their national biodiversity plan, which will also be included in the NDC, which is why also Cali was a Peace with Nature COP. So I think many other countries could learn from that approach to use actually the management and conservation of land as a way to also make peace. So that would be a good example.
Yeah. Thank you very much for responding to this. Yeah, okay. So then let me take another question. There you go.
Hi, good evening. Is it on? Is it on? Okay. Hi, I'm sorry I'm coming in late and I probably missed out a lot, but allow me to introduce myself and then contextualize my question. So my name is Shahid and I'm the Forest, Climate, Wildlife, Environment Secretary for the government of KP. It's one of the provinces in Pakistan. So when you talk about fire, we have about half of Pakistan's forest is in the KP, and we come across a lot of forest fire. But at the same time, you spoke about Kali. Unfortunately, we missed it. But we're also facing conflict. If you're aware of, we're on the Afghan border, and we have some really serious issues. And we come across, of course, we've got forest fire issues and peace issues, communities, that we have to deal with. But we also have some serious deforestation issues. I don't know if that was part of the topic, but the very fact that conflict-driven deforestation, and then you've got like you spoke about Colombia, where they had the drug cartels. We had those, and then we also have insurgent, sort of groups that take advantage of this, and so I wonder, I was getting a few pointers from both of yours discussion of how to put it all together and use our resources with respect to peace and the biodiversity factor. It's a real challenge. I don't know if you know what I mean. If you can put a few comments on that from your own experiences. We've got a peace problem, we've got a deforestation problem, an insurgency problem, and a biodiversity initiative that we have to pursue in the light of all of these challenges. I wonder if you can share your thoughts on if you know what I'm getting at. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Who wants to respond?
That's right. Okay, thank you for the questions. I think that's really important and interesting questions. I mean, based on my experience working in Indonesia, in the eastern part of Indonesia and Papua, it's also, it's relatively still insecure because of, there are also some independent movement groups who's trying to, to fight the national government. What we are trying to do, because in the island of Papua is in fact, the island in Indonesia that possess the remaining 30% of the intact forest in Indonesia. So it's highly diverse, highly protected, remote, less of road infrastructures, industry, and so on. So you name it. Pretty much of the 6 provinces in Papua, they're connected by airplane actually. So and the way and we are working in the 2 out of 6 provinces there, trying to support the indigenous people and local communities to get their lands recognized, because this is the issues of the poverty, right? When we talk about the issues of poverty, it's directly linked to also the security, the domestic security and so on. So if the local community can get their lands tenure recognized, by the local government or by the national government, they have more certainty to work in that land, right? The way we work in Papua, not only with the elders, because there are more than 50 local tribes there in Papua, but also with the religious leaders. Basically, the Papua is pretty much influenced by Christian and Catholics. So we are working with the church how to not only empower the local people, but also hand in hand with the elders and from the religious group or the leader of the religious from with the church. Really, we can actually talk to the local people and also bridge mediate how the could actually work even better or improve the collaboration with the people there in the area. Also, we are working with the local universities. So, these local scientists, they are local people, they are well educated, they have much more awareness about how to protect the forest, how to, develop the local economy, but at the same time also protecting the or conserving the forest land and so on. So, this is, basically involving as much as possible the stakeholders coming from the local regions, either they are researchers or religious group or the elders. I think this is really one of the key there. Thanks.
Something about our experience in Ghana. So this is mainly in the northern sector where once in a while there are some tribal conflicts. And sometimes it is very worrying how this leads into, burning of communities and then also burning of farmlands during this tribal conflict. So you see one tribe burning a whole community, and then everybody in the community will have to flee to another place, and then issues needs to be settled and all that. So apart from the local settings that is used, there is also the National Peace Council also comes into play during this time. And then also they also try to settle some of these conflicts. But the unfortunate situation is that then the national budget will have to be used to rebuild the communities. So that also becomes it puts some constraint on the country as a whole. Some of these things are very difficult to manage because what stir up the conflicts is usually sometimes even unknown. So there are certain things that may be happening, and then one day somebody does something, and then it really results in burning of everything and losing everything. But by and large, we try to go around it with some conflict management, including bringing the National Peace Council into the picture. Sometimes we need to move beyond the boundary. So happening in the northern region, we need to even bring people outside, that particular region to another region to get the issues settled. So those are some of the examples that I have from Ghana.
I think, Claudia, did you? Yeah. Yeah, we have a little bit of time left. Yes, so please go ahead.
No, I really want to thank you for your question. I think it's very important. One of the things that we would advise to, for example, also discuss is not so much the benefits, but also the risks. If communities know, and this all starts, everybody said it, and I think it's absolutely right, it starts at the local level, at the local community level. If with advocacy people can understand the risks of not taking care of the ecosystem, the risks of advancing in forest fires, for example, as you mentioned, etc., that will unleash more conflict, because we know that, and I see it in my birthplace in Mexico, when water scarcity happens, then conflict immediately also unleashes, because some communities have access to water and some don't, and that will exacerbate conflict, migration, you name it. If we're able to also communicate these risks, I think that would also help to emphasize and strengthen some cooperation approaches. Some things that we've done with the Climate Promise funding, for example, in terms of on forest, focusing particularly on forest in Colombia and also in Kenya, is to start bottom-up approaches. I actually mentioned it on the slide, but you were not. Bottom-up approaches involving indigenous communities in Colombia, and in the case of Kenya, local communities, indigenous as well, where they themselves can then map out where are the areas that they need to focus more in terms of conservation, and that they know will bring not only climate but biodiversity, but livelihood benefits. And the livelihood, I think, is very important. In this case, we actually provide direct grants to these communities so that they can implement the solutions themselves. And it's backwards, because they implement the solutions, and then what we do is make sure that those come up in local plans and then in national plans. But they have the power and the ability to then be able to carry out themselves. And we do see that when there is alternative livelihoods provided, for example, in the case of Kenya, it was a women's owned beekeeping and honey producing facility. Once those things start having products and fruit, then immediately others want to get involved, other communities, neighboring villages want to collaborate in this endeavor, and then you see a sort of domino effect in the positive way. So for sure, I think when we try to tackle consultation at the community level and making sure that the solutions come from them, and I did mention one statistic that when indigenous communities have land tenure, we do see that deforestation actually decreases, because they see it as this is theirs, and it's in the long term going to be, whether they take care of it or not, it's going to be what they have. So I will leave it at that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So indeed, I can see also how, this is a very relevant question, and how this is relevant for so many countries. I think indeed that. So thank you for responding to that. I think we're nearing the end of our session. So unless there's a very burning short question, then I think we're going to conclude. Just some sort of takeaways or some keywords that we heard. I think first we saw from Mercy how the community can play a role in managing fire in the landscape, and how this is becoming increasingly important also because the transition zone is transitioning and fire is also used in conflict there. And then Arif, he explained also then how Global Forest Watch, but also other tools can and should be used to monitor forest fires and its impacts. And Claudia, she mentioned how there's also this interlinkage between MBSEPs and NDCs, and that now this is the opportunity also to include it in the new NDC ambitions. And she showed some tools to do so. I think we clearly saw the link with conflict here. So this is really one thing to take on. And I think what I wanted to mention is, because of the complex nature of fire, I think this is also, as Tropenbos, why we work with a landscape approach to address fire in the landscape, because you really need to work on governance, you need to work on knowledge, you need to create all the conditions for collaborative actions, as we put it, to jointly work toward reducing wildfires. And if there's a conflict in the landscape, this is sort of included in there. And if it's not feasible to work on the landscape level, as we saw, then there could be the opportunity to, for now, work on the national level, developing policies in the meantime. I think two things that I wanted to mention is, we have the report that we can share. You have the summary there. Move it over here. So we have the report. You can scan the QR code and then you can see it. I think another thing which I wanted to mention is that we have, as Tropenbos, we are organizing fire dialogues, regional fire dialogues. One is in the Amazon in January. And then another one will follow in Southeast Asia later in May. And this is really about having communities working on fire management coming together and discuss their shared practices, or their practices, their cultural knowledge on fire management, and share and learn between them. And then there will likely also be one in Africa. So please keep posted if this is of interest to you. Yeah, with that, I would like to come to the end of our session. I would like to first and foremost thank our speakers. So thank you, Mercy and Arif and Claudia and Umberto then of course also. So thank you for your valuable insights and also responding to all the burning questions from the audience. Thank you for being here, also the audience online. So with that, I think we have come to the end of our session and looking forward to discuss this more with you in depth after the session. So thank you very much, everyone.